critical time when you really emerge into your adult life. But the thing that's interesting is that you've already lived as a technical adult 10 years prior to 28 to 30. That's what I find really interesting. I find that interesting that it takes, they have to wait 10 more years, and it's not 18 to 20. That's interesting to me. That's interesting to me. The customs, the images that I get are really interesting. And even as random as they may be, I'm not going to be afraid of speaking about them. And if I feel comfortable and if I feel empowered to speak about them on my videos, I want to be creative. I want to be free beyond what I just know is just wrong. It completely doesn't feel right. I don't want to say it. Not the right context for that. When, and there are boundaries and limitations that are inherent when you put yourself out there in the whole world that are just natural. You're not going to say this if you're putting it out in the whole world, because, yeah. So, I mean, yeah. Yeah. Anyway. So, I'm going to break it down here with Saturn return. This is kind of close to home for me because I do know two people that are really personal to me who will be going through a Saturn return within the next 2.5 years. I'd say 2024 is going to be the year for that, but anyway, 2.5 years. That's how long it takes for Saturn to be in the sign whenever it hits the same degree as it is in your natal chart. That's when you have a Saturn return exactly. So that's technically Saturn return. And you can even get more technical with minute, degree, and minute. So I would have my Saturn return at 7 degrees, 5 minutes of Cancer, because that's what it is. That's my Saturn at 7 degrees in the 7th house of relationship. And maybe there's a video about the Saturn return, as opposed to just the Saturn placement, the Saturn return in Cancer, and what that is going to be, and the things of that sign are also going to be super important to consider. And the house, the area of life too. So the first experience you have with Saturn begins. It's almost opposite, because it seems like it's more difficult at 28 to 30, but it's even more difficult. But maybe it's easier at 58 to 60, easiest 88 to 90, or maybe it's harder as you get further along down the pike of your life, the pathway of your life. But here's what I know about it. It is a time where as if Saturn is stationing in the sky for however long that you have the return, and the themes of Saturn are really prevalent at that time. So Saturn is boundaries, its limits, its restrictions, and its responsibility. It's where you need to take responsibility. And it can feel limiting, and like you have to be disciplined, and like it's very sobering, and you are needing to face how far you've come and what you've done in your life, and there may be some regret, and you may realize the limits of your time. of that time is there's a limit to time and how you want to take advantage of making the most of that time. And you're really gonna, you can understand that intellectually, but to feel it, to really, have it come on at a soul level, really, it's when you have the Saturn return. So June, the beginning of June, 10 years from now, is going to be an important time in my life. So you're 18, 10 years, 11 years from now, it's going to be an important time. Something that you may want to write down in the schedule or remember or maybe prepare for, or, So it's, I wonder what it will be like, and where I'll be in that amount of time. And it's just so funny that I was in my composition class, and we were, and he was giving a prompt, because we were doing a little discussion with because as much as it is a composition class, it's also a discussion class. A discussion class where you're connecting with peers and connecting with those people, basically. So, what was going on is he was, asking the question. We were discussing with group members, and we were, we were probably wrote about it, wrote a prompt about it, because after all, this composition class, we probably did that. But anyway, the question was, how do you see yourself in 10 years? In 10 years, where do you want to be? I'm 18, and in 10 years, I'm going to come face to face with the harsh nature of reality in 10 years. And I want to turn that into a positive, because it doesn't have to be all negative. I just want to turn and make it exciting and make it something to look forward to, even if it's a negative cycle. Because the fact is that it's how you look at it. It can either be a really negative time of hardship and challenges, or it can be great opportunity, and a change and a new beginning and a reevaluation of, I've done this, I haven't done this, I feel regret for doing this, I feel like I need to be more disciplined in that area, I need to do this, and this is what I need to do, and I am not doing this, I haven't been doing it this well or efficiently, or I've been really destructive in this area, or I've been slacking off in this area, or I messed up, and now it's time to change that and have a new beginning. And then feel those regrets, feel those feelings of guilt, because it's going to be written on the walls what you've done. And so that's what I see with this. The other thing I want to mention is there was something else, but it just left me. Oh yeah, American history. What happened in America in 1929? Throughout that whole decade of boom, of people buying, and the roaring 20s, when there were so many innovations out, and everyone was so wealthy, and everyone doing all that, going and drinking and doing all those kind of things. And then October 29th, 1929, the stock market crashed. Saturn moment. I wonder what Saturn was doing at that time. Like, I wonder if it was in hard aspect to something or what was going on. But I wonder on that particular day if there was something huge Saturnian happening. I just wonder. And another thing is that maybe that's how it can feel. Like you live your 20s and you're really, living life, but then when you get to the end of your 20s, toward the end of your 20s, then it gets real, and now you're getting serious about your adult life. You sort of started your adult life at 18 and sort of living the high life of that, but then it's getting more real, and it's getting really moving into your job and that whole stage, that whole timeline, that whole trajectory of the human life, not only moving beyond the grade school, moving beyond graduation, moving beyond into your adult life. And if we can look at the human being as an adult and as a child in that development process equally, then there's more to it as an adult. And you could trace the stages of development of progressing through your life as an adult and Saturn. So I am an officially adult now, but maybe I won't become an adult until 10 years go by. And so maybe that's what it's like, so that happened on October 29th, and then the Great Depression happened for almost 10 years. And, people were facing the consequences of, when you have a Saturn return, you face the consequences of your actions, be it positive or negative. You see the karma, you see what you've done written on the wall. You can't get rid of it. It's written on the wall. That's you're looking in the mirror, you're looking on the wall, seeing all the stuff that you've done this far in your life, and you're reevaluating. It's the ultimate reset, reevaluation that you will personally experience. Not that, this month is huge. Saturn changing signs, Pluto changing signs. But when the Saturn return comes, especially the last ditch, last minute thing that happens is age 35, 36, when you have Saturn square, the first Saturn square after Saturn return is probably meant to just make sure that you, and to see how you integrated those lessons that you've taken. It's almost like you go to the hospital and you have surgery, and then you follow up for a follow-up appointment, and see how you're doing, and then wait till another, 58 to 60 to way down the road. So as you move on with the stages and the timeline of the adult life, so that just that year by year, day by day, the test of time, that whole it's real, that thought right now is super interesting to me. It's like last year, the whole entire last year, I was thinking and I was interested in the nodes, and maybe this year it's going to be Saturn that I'm super into. Maybe. So, I don't know. I've been interested in thinking about other things. But, it's when you start settling down with children, a wife, you get a job, you're officially, you're already, as I said, into adulthood, but now you're really getting into that and really having to face how it actually is, and the hard things and what you don't want to deal with. And then, it gets more real and more sort of adult as you go along, and you sort of walk that, I want to say, stereotypical, universal path. You move into, like, what is beyond graduation from high school? What is beyond that? And what is even beyond turning 18? What lies beyond? What lies beyond 10 years from that point is a Saturn return. What lies beyond that, and that whole thing is really interesting to me. And so, another thing I'm going to say is Colette Barrett Reed is going to come here, and I'm thinking about it. And if she wants to, I may ask her about how her Saturn return experience was. I bet that it was something that was a little heavy. And I just wonder if that was when she looked in the mirror in the restroom on the bottom floor and come face to face with all that she had done with the drinking alcohol, all that stuff. I wonder if that was a win, but that may have been after. That may have been after she had already gone on the road to recovery and all of that. There may be a good chance of that. But I'm really curious if that was when it was, because that kind of thing is where you're facing how it was, how it went. And that's one thing. When you're 58 to 60, you move into close to retirement, your later life, and the same cycle happens again, just at a later stage of life. Later, much, let's go way even further into your life. And then let's go even further, 88 to 90, when I don't want to say the words. Face picture. What face picture do I see? This is random. Especially the 28 to 30 Saturn return. I'm thinking about that as, that kind of thing happening. There's this mall, well, it's not a mall, it's a place in Des Moines. It's when you walk on the skywalks and you're walking in this sort of places, elevators, there's an escalator, there's just tables and shops and workplaces around. It's really quiet, and all the times that I've gone there, and just that emptiness of walking there is almost as if you were to walk in that quiet space, that quiet, real space, when you're having a Saturn return and going inside yourself and just being independent and walking alone in there. Representing karma, representing, I don't know, but it's just the thought of that is really interesting to me. So, I'm actually going to take a book from Charles Dickens, a well-loved classic, Great Expectations, and I'm going to make it probably into something that is going to be a model for life. And there's a channel called The School of Life, and it's very Saturn. You go through the School of Life with Saturn, so yeah. But Great Expectations, we're taking that beyond the book itself and beyond that alone. And how is that prevalent for anyone in life? That's Great Expectations. Is that stage of development and the kind of spiritual process also that you go through, especially with Saturn, through your life. And I'm not, and there's certain maybe positive customs or positive stereotypes of a young man in his 20s, even if this isn't London that we're living in, even if this isn't the 1800s, maybe there still is that stereotypical kind of, and you have to break it down by race and by ethnicity. So, what's interesting to me about that is that storyline of it. That storyline of this person who was young and who went through these experiences. And then, the majority of the story shows him in his 20s. And we're looking at young men, but, especially anyone, in at that stage of life, and maybe the great expectations that they are moving into, the sort of empowerment, and the sort of just, even though it would feel scary or new or uncomfortable, now it is this sudden soul calling to be independent, to go places on your own, to do all those adult things. It's not too scary, or it's not too overwhelming or frightening. It does feel right, and it does feel ready, and it feels sort of neutrally right, neutrally positive and peaceful. As you're sort of, I would be sort of walking in this place alone, and in a sort of positive state of acceptance that I'm at this stage in my life right now. And metaphorically, I would be getting on that train that isn't going to come back around until 58 to 60. So we're getting on a train, 28 to 30 coming back around, 58 to 60. And there's also the train of your nodal return. That's the thing that happens around 18, 19 years old, is your nodal return. Then, 18 years later, you have another nodal return. So that's another train that comes, and when you stop having the nodal return, it leaves, and you get on it or not or whatever. I'm certainly, could I be stereotypical, but unique in my own individual self. But anyway, that's just kind of what I'm thinking about. And I'm really thinking about bringing in those kind of customs of that and walking around that particular space sometime. Just like we're going to be walking around the therapist building on March 8th. This Wednesday, only 5 days from now, which is crazy. I do want to have an experience of being, of that adult feeling, of that sort of feeling really grounded Saturn, but not overwhelmed, or not in fear, or not in feeling like it suddenly happens so quickly, and just a sort of neutral, right feeling of this is what's happening, and this is just where I am going. It's that kind of feeling. And you're sort of embracing the new customs, embracing that tradition and those customs that I'm thinking about, of that Great Expectations model, of the story of Pip getting on the train or if it was even a train to go to London and become gentlemen and all those kind of things like that. And that great expectations, Saturn, expectations rules for who you're going to become. And I just think that's so Saturnian. And, I do want to take that and make that a real model, not just for astrological, spiritual, but also the life and developmental, because Saturn's really real practical. So we will be looking more at that. And there's going to be a neat kind of custom with that. But it's going to be something that it's not going to be as a group. It's not going to make sense. It's going to be something that you're going to be doing on your own. Because that's the whole point is, an adult on your own. That kind of thing. Sudden change, a sudden, that day you turn a certain age, you're suddenly independent, you're suddenly an adult and doing all those kind of things. I'm not exactly, but getting there. So that's just my thoughts about that, and it's something that we may do sometime or another, maybe April. I'm thinking April, we may do that. We may do something like that, where, and I'll explain that. Basically, you would be going to Des Moines almost, or maybe entirely on your own, and experiencing what that would feel like to be on your own, and then coming back. And feeling those feelings, and having that experience. Maybe it was overwhelming or scary or whatever. Or maybe it wasn't. It all depends. And maybe it's okay to feel the fear or the overwhelm, those kind of things. And both the positive and negative, or neutral, or blend of those feelings. That despite the fear, you would still go ahead anyway, despite the, all those kind of things like that. So, that's what's going on. I've decided to cancel my meeting. I was planning on showing Christy's scenes, but I've decided not to. Christy and Luke Isaac from Dance Moms. But anyway, I'm going to play that song, and then we're going to be, this meeting is going to be over.